Hey, everybody, welcome back to Council Sessions. That's right. Council Sessions, something we haven't done in quite some time, but got some big topics we got to go over the next few months. And one big one right now is all about our little man, Grogu. And to do that, had to bring back my Mandalore podcast co-host, Cyber Ren. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing good. How are you, Visla? Or David, I should say.
That's all right. This is good.
Yeah.
Um, Thanks for joining me. I do want to bring this up because
hmm
I was very surprised to realize this because it's been a while since we have done a council session on Inside the Force. The
Yep.
last one we did was me and you, and the topic was what would it mean if Luke meets Ahsoka?
Right.
And we did that obviously before Luke meets Ahsoka.
We did.
So I was going to go back. I went back and started listening to it because to remind myself what we talked about. But I'm interested to know if we got how we determined. But one thing that was different was
Yeah.
when we saw them on the Book of Boba Fett, they had already met.
Yeah.
But we were talking about like the first encounter that they had. So
Yeah, I think we were speculating who's it going to be more important to,
it's
Luke,
right.
or will it affect Ahsoka more because of her past with Anakin? Yeah, and I think equally, it actually comes out equally as a big deal for both characters.
Agreed. Agreed. So I bring that up because what we're going to talk about on this episode is about our little man Grogu, and basically what we're going to dissect, because what we do on council sessions, right, is we answer those big complex questions. And I think one of the big complex questions out there, at least among some Star Wars fans, is what happened to Grogu in that basically 28-year gap between Order 66 and when Mandalorian, the Mandalorian Din Djarin finds him with his bounty on what was it, Avalar 7?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah, with him and IG-11.
Arvala 7 with
Arvala
IG-11.
7. Yep. Yep.
So we are going to talk about that right now. And, just like Luke and Ahsoka, probably we may see this answered somewhere down the road and we can come back again and see if we're anywhere right. So, the big first question has got to be,
where did you get that Mandalorian sweater? Because I want one.
oh yeah, I think this is like a Target thing, to be honest.
Is it?
Last year,
Oh man,
I know it's pretty cool. It's got a big emblem on the back.
I know I like it.
The
I got
Mandalorian.
it's too cold up here in Canada right now to wear my Star Wars t-shirt, so I got nothing to show.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cold here. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
it's a lot colder where you are. I think it's like 32 degrees Fahrenheit here. So
Okay.
I don't know what that is. You're on Celsius up there, so
Yeah. Well, we were minus 30 Celsius today, which I think once you get to the negatives, I think Celsius and Fahrenheit are the same. So imagine minus 30 Fahrenheit.
wow. Okay,
It's
yeah,
cold right now.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's about
we hit
60
a deep
degrees
freeze.
difference. So yeah, okay, definitely not that cold here, but it is cold in my house right now, and I'm in my
Yeah,
basement, which is kind of cold, naturally.
same here.
Okay, so we got to go back to the beginning, I think, first to
Yeah,
dissect this.
yeah,
We saw glimpses, Grogu's vision of what his viewpoint was during Order 66. There were
hmm
three Jedi that were protecting him in a sense. We never really saw, and we haven't been told yet, really, who actually saved Grogu or took Grogu. Um,
yeah.
I mean, do you what's been in your mind about the possibilities of where Grogu, what happened to Grogu right after Order 66?
Well, the first big question is who saves them, right? Like that, and
Mm-hmm.
the speculate because they did not give us a hint of it at all. And I know we talked about on Mandalore, we just speculated a little bit, and there's a few ideas you can go with. I mean, I threw out there just for fun R2D2 because he's always the hero, and we're not quite sure where R2 was at this point, at that exact point. And the reason that I bring up R2 is because it would answer the season 2 finale of Mandalorian, why R2 seemed to be happy to see little Grogu, because when he looks down at Grogu, he does his little R2 dance and his happy chirps, and that to me
Mhm.
was like, is he familiar with Grogu? Like there's some type of familiarity there, or it's either that or he's just happy to see like what there's another species of Yoda because he knows Yoda very well.
Right.
So it could go either way. So R2 was one of my first guesses, but then I also started thinking, what about Anakin? Could Anakin, because we know Anakin has struggled with his emotions, and that
Mhm.
is what led him down his path to the dark side. And we know that in that exact same moment, he already went in and slaughtered all the young Padawans, all the younglings, the
Right.
kids that were like 4 years old, 6 years old. And I wonder if he had an emotional break after that. Like after he did that, did he step back and go, "What did I just do?" And then to somehow redeem himself in his own mind, in his own heart, he either he knew about Grogu and we never saw that, visually, but maybe he knew and he went in there and grabbed Grogu before the clone troopers got there. Anakin is a
Mm.
very strong possibility to get him out of there, but it could also be a surviving Jedi that we don't know of. It could there's so many possibilities. So that's the first question: who saved him? And I don't know. What do you think? What's your
Uh, part of me, yeah, part of me is like so many Jedi, if not all, died in the temple at that point, right? Because
yeah
Anakin, like you just said, Anakin led the 501st garrison into the temple, and they were just overrun.
hmm,
And at that point, all the masters weren't really even there because they were out at all the battles getting
right
slaughtered.
right
So you only had really Jedi Knights in there, or Padawans and younglings, so people that really couldn't fight yet.
yeah
So they were easily dispatched. And of course, Anakin was there to take care of most of the masters.
yeah
But I, so I tend to think that it would have been very difficult for anybody to grab him and escape, unless there was some, secret passageway or whatever. But I tend, the only reason I hesitate saying anything like that is because of the next step, right? Like if he was saved, then I feel like he would have been protected over this course of this time period.
yeah
But since he was captured, and basically had his bounty on him, I want to tend to think that somebody bad, or somebody that wasn't a Jedi has found him. So right now I'm leaning towards probably just, the clones almost coming in instead of slaughtering him, not really knowing if he was a Jedi or not, or, a Padawan or not, just seeing this baby in this little crib and basically grabbing him and basically taking him prisoner in a sense.
hmm,
Um, and having, and kind of leads to the fact that I think that's how maybe Palpatine discovers him.
okay
Um,
okay
and so I
huh
wanted, I love the storyline and the thought that maybe Palpatine knows about him. Um, and that whole process of trying to figure out cloning, from an
yeah
early stage, with his contingency plans of surviving anything.
yeah
Maybe this was, because we talked about that for a while, obviously, because what we see in the Mandalorian is experiments on Grogu. Is it the cloning process? Is it, and we see in Bad Batch, right, that they are trying to do something with cloning
yeah that's why they
still.
stole the Camino scientist.
Right. So how
Mao
cool,
Se,
actually
yeah.
popping in my head, how cool would it be if Grogu pops up in Bad Batch somehow?
Yeah. Yeah. In
Right.
animated form. Yeah, that would be really neat to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So part
Yeah.
of me feels like he is, unfortunately, and maybe this is why he's so, why he doesn't obviously speak, and why he's always
Yeah.
really fearful, a little bit hesitant, is that maybe he's literally just been a lab rat this whole time. So, I don't know. I don't
Well,
know yet where I'm landing yet, but but that's kind of where I am with where he goes. I want to obviously a lot of me wants to say that he got saved by the Jedi, but I just don't think any Jedi really survived that
And
temple.
it could just be nobody. It doesn't have to be someone big. It could just be a temple worker, like a servant,
Yeah.
someone who's there. Like just they know of Grogu, they've changed his diapers or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and they grab him and run. Because for me, part of me thinks that the clone troopers after Order 66, they have one mission: kill all Jedi. They're in the Jedi temple, and I think they're just shooting anything and everything that moves. I don't think they're going to look at a baby and go, oh, pause, there's a baby. Because otherwise, why would Anakin go slaughter kids? They're just killing everybody. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. So I have this sense that the clone troopers, if they had seen him, they would have killed him too. And to me, it was, if you picture that scene, it was a strange. I mean, the troopers are coming down a long corridor. Why would Grogu just be sitting in a crib at the end of the corridor or in the corridor? To me, that's a strange. I think there's something missing. I think he might be in a room and maybe looking out a doorway and seeing that coming. He's just not sitting out in the corridor. That doesn't make sense. I think he's in a room looking through a doorway and seeing all of this coming.
Well, unless those Jedi were trying to lead him out, and
Yeah,
they got ambushed in a hallway or something like that. So,
yeah.
um,
But I was looking, I rewatched that sequence over and over again, and I even freeze framed it on my computer and moved it frame by frame by frame. And there's a couple moments that it looked as the clone troopers are firing and their blaster is lighting up the background. There's a couple moments where you could see the outline of a figure coming behind them, and you can't quite tell if it's Anakin or
mhm,
somebody. There's just a very faint outline. It's there for like a frame or two and then gone, but it
mm,
never actually comes forward. But
interesting.
then when it switches to Grogu's face, the very last shot we get is Grogu's face, and you see a shadow come down over him. Everything just darkens and then it fades out. So
Hmm.
somebody walks up to him, and that's as much as I can discern from that. Whether it's his rescuer, whether it's your theory that one of the bad guys is coming up to him and grabbing him because they maybe that was an ultimatum we didn't know. Maybe Palpatine, I mean, he was the chancellor, so maybe he knew if Grogu was at the temple for 10, 15 years training,
Yeah.
maybe Palpatine knew of him because he knew all the kids, he knew everybody that was there that Yoda was working with. I mean, he was part of all of that, so maybe he already knew. And maybe now that Order 66 happened, he's like, kill everybody, get that guy, get the little green guy. And I mean, your theory I think could hold true, and that's
Yeah. I would. That's an interesting twist. I would like. I would be okay with if it was Anakin that eventually came down that hallway and saw him and said, told his clone commanders, take him and send him over to Palpatine or send him over to
yeah.
holdings so we can kind of figure out what to do with him. Because you're right, because he would probably have known about him. He would probably have thought that Yoda was going to get killed out on Kashyyyk where he was. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe they wanted to experiment with his midi chlorians about cloning and stuff like that. I don't know. The thing about what we've learned about Palpatine, I feel like, is that he's kind of like Batman in a sense where he has every plan. Like he knows three steps
Yeah.
ahead of what's going to happen.
And he plays the long game. Like he plans out
Mm-hmm.
20 years from now. He plays the long game.
Yeah.
Totally.
So maybe one of
Yeah.
the contingency plans was to capture a Jedi or at least a high midichlorian Jedi to make sure I can learn this process of having to manipulate them and to be able to
Yeah.
heal myself or live forever. So,
Yeah.
um, okay, well then, based on what you're thinking, I mean, what has happened to him over this course of this time? What do you think? Where do you think
Yeah.
Grogu has been? Has he been moving around? Has he been locked up in the same spot? I mean, what do you, what are you leaning towards?
Well, and here's the thing: where it's surprising is I don't think people are realizing that it's been 28 years since that scene of Order 66 to where we see him in season 1, episode 1 of The Mandalorian, it's been 28 years. So
Right.
when you absorb that tidbit of knowledge, that makes you go, whoa, okay, where has he been for 28 years?
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
makes me argue our theories that we just came up with. If he's grabbed by Anakin or someone working for Palpatine and they want to initially grab him, that to me, somebody has to have taken him away from that, because where we catch up to him on Arvala 7 in a crib, hiding in a small little desert town,
Or being held captive. Yeah.
being held captive. Well, yeah, captive or what? Because I mean, obviously somebody's taking care of him. He's not. This is 28 years later. Someone's been feeding him. Someone's been taking care of him enough that he's still alive. And what is he doing on this planet in his little carrier there,
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by a bunch of thugs? Because the interesting point that you brought up earlier is, which I forgot, all of those guys that were guarding him in that town when Mandalorian and IG-11 come in, they were, you said, Niktos.
Niktos. Yeah.
And that surprised me. I could not remember them being Niktos. I thought they were just people.
Mm-hmm.
And that entire town was Niktos, which we just got reintroduced to, apparently, in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yep.
I had forgotten that we saw the Niktos. So why do Niktos have him? Are they holding him hostage? Are they holding him for ransom? Or what's going on? So that's where the disconnect is what, from the point Grogu was taken from the temple, what gets him to where he is, and why is it 28 years later? So the point that comes to my mind is there's a bounty out on him.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody hired, what was the guy's name in The Mandalorian?
Well, Gideon hired the client basically to
Gideon hired the
retrieve.
client to retrieve, yes,
To
because
retrieve
Gideon wanted to
Grogu.
continue right. So who's Gideon working for at that point to get Grogu, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I think we discover Gideon is the one that's been trying to get Grogu.
Yeah, but is he doing that for his own?
Right. Or is he doing it for Palpatine from the grave?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
So
we don't know.
to continue my thought process, so they're after him and they put a bounty out on him and they hire Din Djarin to go get the bounty. So that tells me that Grogu maybe never was with the Empire or Palpatine, or he was and someone got him away and he's been gone for 20. Because it seems like he was hard to find. And now that they finally found him, they want to hire the best bounty hunter they can think of to go get him and make sure that the job is a success and they get him back. What brings into question for me is the answer we never got in Mandalorian is, how do those fobs work? Is it a genetic tracking system? Is it because if they're able to track Grogu, that means something had to be placed on Grogu for it to track.
Right.
Or if it's a DNA-based thing, a genetic thing, they had to have had Grogu in their possession before to be able to have his DNA or genetics on file to program the fob and say, boop, here it is, track this DNA, and off they go, and that's where they located him. So that's the missing information to understand how they tracked him, because to me it's a baby on a desolate desert planet. How do they know? How does the fob know that he's there, right? How do they track him? So we never got that information. I still want to know that. But coming all the way back to your question, where's he been for the 28 years? Well, if he was rescued from the temple and someone has him, that to me, that tells the story that someone's been taking care of him, someone's been feeding him. They haven't been training him, because we know now after his training with Luke that he's forgotten everything. Luke's like, he's more remembering than I'm actually teaching him.
Right.
So wherever he's been for 20 years, he has not been continued on any of his Jedi force power use or anything. He's just been treated as a baby, which is probably why he doesn't talk yet. Probably why. So if it was the Niktos that have had him, they don't care. He's just something worth money to them. So they're just keeping him alive. They're not teaching him anything. So maybe Grogu is behind in his development, being 50 years old now. I don't know. But so my two stories, I know I'm going all over the place, but my two angles are, he was either rescued from the temple and someone's been taking care of him, but the Niktos, like they do, came and robbed, and maybe they killed the farm, grabbed him, they're using him for ransom or whatever. Who knows? But they've got him now. So there's that missing link of info, that who took him and who saved him and where he ended up in the Niktos' hands now. Or he was with Palpatine and somebody rescued him from there, and that's why they're able to track him. But again, how does he get to where he is with Nyctos?
Mm-hmm.
28 years later, like what was he doing for 28 years?
Yeah.
Who's taking care of him? How is he just living? Like, I just can't see him. We see him in a little hut in his carriage, and it was closed. I just can't see him being left there like that for 28 years. Someone had to have been taking care of him.
Right. And I think back to one of the surprising things I felt like was discovered. Well, I guess it's not too surprising because if you remember our first introduction to live action Ahsoka, yes, and Din Djarin brought Grogu to her, she did not know him, obviously, right?
Nope.
So now she left the Order, obviously, before Order 66 happened.
But that wasn't that much time before either.
It was, I think it was a good, the Clone Wars was still going on. Mm-hmm. So probably a good 6 months to a year before because she was gone. I think she was gone about 6 months before we see her in season 7, where she runs into the Martez sisters and then eventually runs into Bo-Katan. Yeah. And goes after Maul. I think she's out of it probably 6-7 months, I think. So, so you would think, Grogu's been there for a while, so you would think she would have known about him or something like that, right?
Yes. Or because she's just a Padawan, there's some secrets they didn't share with her yet.
But at that time, time that, there's thousands of Jedi. So it's like, you can't know them all. So it's understandable that she maybe never cross paths with Grogu.
And because he's a one of a kind, like we only know Yoda, we know Yaddle, and maybe they kept him really secret.
It's possible.
Nobody should know about this little guy.
It's possible. Yeah. But based on that, I think, when he gets out in the world now or in the galaxy now, whoever has him, I find it difficult to figure out who would know about him, who would find out about him. So,
right.
Which again is leaning me towards that he hasn't really been moving around, that he's pretty much stuck where whoever's got him, be it the Empire. That's what makes me think that has to be something possibly with the Empire, because if he's rescued by a Jedi or rescued by somebody that works at the temple, I feel like they could have hidden and not been discovered if they were obviously smart enough. They could have traveled to some outer rim planet and, or maybe even some mid-rim planet and just lived out in hiding, but I part of me has to feel like somehow he fell into the Empire's hands. And part of me feels like Palpatine knows about him. I'm telling you, the more and more I think about it, I'm not going to be shocked if something of him pops up in the Bad Batch. And maybe it's not a story necessarily centered on him, but now we've been introduced to this clone facility at the end of season 1.
Yep.
And it wouldn't be surprising if he's in there, to me, that he's already getting experimented on. And
because Bad Batch is taken right after the end of Clone Wars. So if the Empire snagged him from the temple, they would have him at this point in the timeline.
Yes. And they've just
half the age.
He's 20, 4 or 5 or whatever, or 22-ish. And we've seen obviously that the Empire destroyed Kamino, right? So there aren't any cloning facilities on Kamino anymore. Wherever we're at on the Bad Batch at this point, which it seems like they're going down that road of cloning. Of course, Alpha is still part of this series. I mean, not Alpha, but Omega. So I feel like that's something Filoni would do, is bring a character from, just like he did with Cad Bane and introduced them in live action. He'll bring Grogu into possibly animation, and then we start seeing that history a little bit because I think it has to
Yeah.
be told, right? Um, so
Yeah.
part of me feels like if he's in there and he's getting experimented on, that it is possible that somehow the story of him gets out, and maybe the facility gets you know overrun and again by mercenaries or by something, and then he gets taken somehow, and then that's when it's possible his bounty starts kind of bouncing around. I think that's a possibility
Right.
too, that he gets taken and taken and taken and taken, until we find him where he is with these Nictos,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they send Din Djarin to go again, bring him back to the Empire. Because I feel like that's not I'm with you. Like, I feel like that's not the first time they've had him or sought to have him. Like, I feel like they had him and then somehow lost him, or he was taken. And this is
Right.
the Mandalorian is their attempt to get him back. That's kind of where I'm landing, but there's so much time. 28
20 years
years.
is a
I
lot.
mean, it's so much story there, I feel like.
And he may have just gotten out there. Someone got him, and they took him far enough away that the Empire lost him, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
it's hired Gideon and his entire force to go track him down and find him because they want him back. And so I mean, that many years gone, and the Niktos, like I said, the Niktos are just a bunch of raiders. So maybe they just happened upon him and destroyed some village, found him, grabbed him, and they know he's worth something. I don't know, but you made me think of something with uh when you mentioned the Bad Batch and Omega. If they introduce Grogu at half his age on the Bad Batch, if he's at the facility, how cool of a scene would it be that he shows up and Omega's like, "Oh yeah, hey Grogu," like she knows him because she
Mm,
seems to know everything that goes on at that facility, right?
right,
So
right.
maybe what if she had some information and there's a connection? We got Omega, we got Grogu, all these new characters actually have a connection together.
Yes, yes.
Crazy.
That would
And
be really cool.
I just realized one of my lights went dark. Does it look okay for your video still, or should I
No, it
fix
looks
that?
good. It looks fine.
Okay.
Add some ambiance.
Yeah, I look kind of blue. I'm in Star Wars blue now.
Yeah, no, you're fine still. It's a little darker on the right side of you, but
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
No, one of my side lights went out. So.
Um, so let's see. I think that's where I'm at. I mean, I do think, which I think it would be an interesting connection to the overall story, is that I think there's some tie to Palpatine with this. I do think that this whole cloning process, I think what's possible, because again, we still haven't really fully learned Gideon's motivations, right?
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, he wants him to experiment on, obviously, but why? And I think it's possible, like, well, a possible storyline is that, Palpatine over the course of the years was learning how to clone himself so that he can
Yeah.
transfer his body. I think that's been a part of his plan this whole time. And Grogu was possibly a catalyst for that experiment. And since he got taken, taken from them, maybe in the early, around the time of the fall of the Empire, Return of the Jedi and the
Yeah.
Battle of Jakku, and maybe Grogu gets taken, and it's possible, since we know from the Rise of Skywalker that Palpatine never really successfully cloned himself.
Right.
It would make sense that Gideon is tracking him down in order to keep experimenting with cloning and maybe able to use, whatever abilities Grogu has with his midi chlorians to make a better clone for Palpatine. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that is a possible storyline.
Or part of Palpatine's history is that he's trying to figure out a way to give the clones force abilities too.
True. Yep.
So maybe he
Mm-hmm.
needs, knowing Grogu is the same species as Yoda, and Yoda's the most powerful Jedi that he knows. He figures if I get that type of
Yep.
midichlorian levels, and then maybe that'll give me the the substances I need to make a strong Force clone
That's right.
that I can transfer myself into.
Mm-hmm.
So it does. I mean, and like you mentioned, the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch basically tied all this original timeline to the sequels for us by ending its first season on grabbing Nala Se and taking her to the cloning facility and having that main scientist saying, "Oh, you're the cloning expert. We've got some really good stuff here. You're gonna love it
That's
here."
right. That's right.
So hello, that just completely connects, and that's how many years before the sequel. So that shows us how many years earlier Palpatine's been working
Yep.
on
Mm-hmm.
learning how to clone. So
Yep. Oh, I'm sure he's been working on that ever
yeah,
since he was a Sith.
yeah,
And and Plagueis was, talking to him about, you know, cheating death and all that stuff. So,
yeah.
all right. So then, kind of the final question really is, do you think we will get his story, will we get this gap filled,
The 28 years.
the 28 years of Grogu's, or
Yeah.
do we not need it? Or do we have enough information to go on?
Well, I guess that depends on what Dave Filoni is. He going to follow George Lucas's ultimatum? No answers about Yoda. And that's
Mhm.
it. He's a mystery. We're not going to learn his name, of his species, his planet, nothing. Is that going to transfer over to Grogu as well? Like here is there's another one alive, but that's all you're going to get. I mean, will we get any answers about where he's been? I think we should. I mean, you and me have talked about a lot of things that we should get. We should know about this. They should show us this story, and this is one of them. But you're asking me if they will do it, and that's what I'm unsure of.
Yeah.
Because you look at where Grogu is now. Like they basically they just presented him with the, do you want to be a Jedi or do you want to hang out with Papa Mando? Well, he's a little baby. He chooses Papa Mando, hands down. Like that was not even a hard choice. Yeah, I don't know why. When you actually look back at it now, it's like they presented it like this big, oh my gosh, it's the decision of
Mm-hmm.
all decisions. Nah, not for a baby. He's choosing dad every time, hands down.
Yeah.
So, and off he goes. It's just the two of them going off into the galaxy. So there is no Jedi connection. There's no big buildup of him, becoming the next great Jedi master, and he's going to go face down whatever Dark Lord comes up next. Like that, I think all of that is gone. It's going to be a Mandalorian story with him now. So will they fill us in on the missing 28 years? I might swing towards probably not. We might get
Mm-hmm.
little bits. I
Mm-hmm.
think we might get like information we might see because we just saw flashbacks of Order 66 and what he saw. So they might flesh that out more. I think they're going to want to give us the answer of who rescued him because they all know that's the mystery. Everyone is asking who rescued him. So I think that answer for sure they have to give to us. Who got him out of the temple, good or
Right.
bad.
Right.
And they might just show us where he got to, but I don't think they'll fill in the full 28 years. I mean, that could be an entire series on its own right there. But
Yeah.
they might just do it in flashbacks and just little glimpses and piece it together really quickly. He was here, he got rescued, he got recaptured, the Nictos got him. Now you're caught up.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I wonder if it will be, I wonder if it would be, occasional stories that aren't centered around him. There are other stories, books or comics that, and it just happens that Grogu pops up in them, or
Yeah.
is there. I think it'll be difficult to fill in that gap,
Yeah.
because because technically the Jedi are gone. You can't really have him with any other Jedi. It's kind of a sad story if he's just imprisoned and getting experimented on this whole time. You can't
Or
really
was
go
he given
anywhere.
to a farmer? He's just in some planet on a farmer's site. Like I said, because he forgot all of his force training. So he's with somebody that's not bothering to teach him anything or doesn't even know to teach him anything. So
Right.
maybe he's just with a farmer.
That's
And
possible.
that's why he's
Totally.
got these little brown robes on. Like he's
Yep.
just,
Yep.
like
Yeah, but part of me feels like too, when he's with Ahsoka and he's with Luke, they can hear him speak, right? They can speak to him through the Force, and I feel like
yeah,
if he had, that's the thing too, is I feel like his memory might be shaken also. So he might not even,
traumatized.
yeah, he might not even
Yeah,
know where he's been, because I feel like if he did, I think he would have told them about that. He would have told Ahsoka what happened to him, or he would have told Luke what happened to him in this time. Because to Luke, really, when he talks about his heart's not in it, I think he only can sense what Grogu has been through since knowing Din.
yeah,
Not really beforehand, right? So he's not reading his mind or listening to him about what all the bad or good things that he went through over this course of time before, right after Order 66. So I think I think a lot of his memories are just gone. And maybe that's, as viewers, how we're supposed to look at it, that like it's an empty past because he doesn't even remember it himself. So
yeah. Or another angle I want to throw at you there is that I might be way off the mark in saying that he's underdeveloped, maybe because we don't know what this species are. All we know is Yoda got to almost 900 years old. Maybe 50 years old for the species is still infant, is still baby like. And maybe he's not talking. Maybe he can't tell Luke because he's not able to. He's just a baby. He can't express what, what he saw. He can't put it into words because he doesn't understand yet himself. Like he still looks at the Grogu we get. He still looks at the world wide eyed. He gets excited to see a frog because he's hungry.
yeah.
It's not like he still does the little baby sounds. I mean, he doesn't even have a first word yet. So maybe 50 years old is still baby like. Maybe it's equivalent to a 1 or 2 year old for humans. And he's
Yeah,
still
I think
taking the
I think
world in.
it's I think it's I mean, personally, I think it's got to be. I feel like it's got to be like a 10-1 ratio. With Yoda being almost 1,000 years old,
Could
900.
be like
So
90.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's like 90. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Grogu, if he's 50, then he should be around 5-ish.
That's
Which is still
that's
pretty young.
yeah. But able to
Um,
communicate. Like,
you should be able to
yeah.
communicate, which he does because he obviously told Ahsoka his name,
Mhm.
right? So he's just not able to speak. I
Yeah.
think he's able to, say something in his mind, basically on what he knows. So yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good question too. Is will we hear him speak eventually
Ever
in
hear him
the
speak. Yeah.
Mandalorian? I don't know.
It made me think that they're leading to that because when he's walking through the forest with Luke, Luke's telling him all about Yoda and says, that's how Yoda used to speak. He used to speak in riddles.
Riddles,
Did
yes.
you ever hear somebody speak like that? So it's like Luke was testing him, I think, there to
Mm-hmm.
see if
Mm-hmm.
Grogu was going to respond in the same speech patterns as
Right.
Yoda, or is
Right.
Yoda the only one that spoke like that? So, and we didn't get a response, and that's the thing because Luke was also asking him, "Do you remember? Do you remember what happened to you? Do you want to remember?" Because he was just sitting there, just staring at Luke with big eyes, like, and he wasn't even giving him an answer. I think he just looked sad, like like what you're saying. He can't remember because he's been traumatized. Because
Yeah.
Luke kept saying, "Do you want to remember?" And he just kept looking at him. Okay, so can't he remember, or he can't process what he remembers? And then Luke puts his hand on his head, and we
Mm-hmm.
get the flashbacks. And here we are, a 20-year-old Grogu witnessing all this stuff. Like he just looks like a baby, unaware. It's just like, holy, all this flashing lights and loud bangs and noises. What's going on? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good question,
It's
man.
some interesting conversation. Yeah. Because I think
Yeah.
there's a lot there, and it is a complex topic to dissect. But
Mhm.
season 3 of Mandalorian will get to us eventually, and we'll
Yeah.
continue the adventures of Grogu and Din Djarin and see
Yeah.
where that leads us. But
You know what might happen though, Vizsla, is that you and me over in Mandalore, we always dive so deep that we overanalyze everything and we never get answers as deep as we speculate we will.
Yes,
And that's
correct.
probably what's going to happen here. We're probably going so far into it thinking we've got it all figured out, and
Yeah,
we're just not going to get the answers to Grogu that
probably not.
we're trying to write in.
Yes, probably not. Yeah, because it is a big gap, and I think it's
Yeah.
hard to find the stories to fill that in. But again, and it could be as simple as, honestly, it could be as simple as a character encyclopedia that comes out updated with him in it, and it kind of just has a 2-page written up story about what happened to him, and that could be it. Who knows?
Yeah.
So
I
we
think
will
we're going to
see.
see.
We will
I
see.
think we're going to see who rescues them or gets them out of the temple. That's at the very least we have to get that.
I think you're right. I think the stuff that happens right after Order 66 is. I think that's easily told. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's going to happen. All right. Well, we'll obviously dive more into this as it comes up, especially on the Mandalore podcast. Go check that out if you haven't already. Inside the Force, we are on all your podcast feeds and YouTube as well. So thanks everybody for checking us out and coming. And of course, thank you to my co-host Cyber Ren for joining me on this episode.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me again. It's always fun.
Yep.
Back to back.
Back to back. I know we'll probably see more of Cyber on here. And as we tackle these questions, we always have good conversations about this stuff. So,
well, we got a big gap. I mean, Obi-Wan is our next show as far as we know. So
that's right. Not until May 25th. So Obi-Wan Kenobi, we'll be deep diving into that. And I think I've read actually it's 6 episodes.
Nice.
So 6 weeks of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but we won't be getting it till. Now, there is something, as on a side note, apparently rumors are there's something about Bad Batch about to drop too. I don't know if it's a trailer or possibly a release date, but I do think it's possible that may come out right after Obi-Wan, like literally like Obi-Wan and then right into it. But who knows? I thought it was going to, I mean, I did think Obi-Wan would be first. I just thought it'd be sooner. Yeah. But that's the next big one to do. And of course, a lot of news coming out. Obviously, May the 4th will be here soon. And then Star Wars Celebration at the end of May. We're going to get a lot of Star Wars news to talk about, I think, for 2022.
Yeah.
Big year. Thanks again, Cyber Ren. We'll talk to you soon.
Right. Take care, bud.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. May the Force be with you.